Hello, I'm Dr. Margaret Cochran, and this is Wisdom, Love, and Magic. Today, we're going to conclude our talk on empathy. Folks, in case you haven't noticed, the world sucks like a bucket of ticks right now. We've got pandemics, plural, a climate crisis that includes fire, famine, and floods, and we have social narcissism so severe that certain people really believe that they're entitled to do whatever they want, whenever they want, even at the expense of the health and safety of others. And the system we are using to manage all of this is none other than the human brain. An organ, and I'm being very conservative when I say this, which hasn't evolved in at least the last 10,000 years. So let's see. We have 21st century problems being managed by ancient technology. What could go wrong? A lot. Which is why we have so many people who are confused, frightened, and vulnerable to manipulation by conspiracy theorists. So how do we cope? Well, the answer doesn't lie in how much money you have, what political party you're affiliated with, or even how many followers on Instagram you have. The answer lies in something as old as the human psyche itself: empathy. I'm often asked what empathy is. Isn't it just another word for sympathy? No. Sympathy is when you see someone in pain and you move forward to help them, but you lose your footing emotionally such that you become part of the problem instead of part of the solution. Empathy is when you see someone in pain and you move forward to help while managing to stay yourself in the process such that you can be part of the solution rather than contributing to the problem. Said another way, empathy is sympathy with healthy boundaries, something we need very much, especially now. Problem is that empathy is not exactly trending. In fact, the research shows that empathic responses are down 75% from the levels in the 1980s. You heard me right, 75%. That same literature will also tell you that people who do practice empathy are happier, have better lives and relationships, and live longer. So empathy is good. We clearly need more of it. Why don't we use it? Empathy is not always a walk in the park. If someone you love is hurting, it can be challenging to maintain empathy, even in the face of tremendous benefit. I once treated a Buddhist monk for PTSD. He'd just been smuggled out of China, and as you may know, the Chinese are not particularly fond of Buddhism, and he had been starved and tortured and beaten, and just about every horrible thing you can imagine had been done to this beautiful man. And I asked him, given everything that he'd been through, what sustained him? What was hardest for him? And he said, the thing that kept me alive and that was hardest of all was to maintain empathy for my captors. So, how do we make empathy part of our lives? The answer is we teach it. We teach it in every institution of learning, from vocational training programs to the upper echelon of academia. We don't even have to reinvent the wheel. There are lots of excellent empathy curricula already in existence. All we have to do is utilize what's out there. Okay, well, how do we get institutions to teach it? We ask. We ask teachers and principals and deans and school boards. And given how frequently humans say no to anything new, we ask whomever we need to ask again and again and again until we get a yes. The answer to heal the world by teaching empathy is astonishing in its simplicity. And it's foolproof. It cannot fail unless we fail to execute it. Now, I'm hoping at this point you're feeling inspired. After all, you have in your possession an uncomplicated and very practical way to make the world a safer, happier, and more loving place. So you might think to yourself, I can do this. I can make a difference, not only in my lifetime, but for future generations as well. That's pretty amazing. And then in about, 48 to 72 hours, you're going to hear a voice. And the voice will say that, well, that whole empathy thing was nice and all, but it's too hard, too much, and you don't have time. Let someone else do it. That voice, by the way, is your unconscious mind. Its job is to maintain homeostasis, or to keep to what you've trained it to believe is your normal state of mind and behavior. You deviate too far one way or the other from that, and it will do everything possible to correct you by discouraging whatever change you propose. That's the voice that sabotages your New Year's resolutions, by the way, but that's another talk. However, this time, in addition to the voice you're used to hearing, you're going to hear another voice, a stronger, more persistent voice, one that may sound remarkably like mine, that will say, yes, yes, you can. You can do what it takes to change the world. You and I on our own, and all of us together, can use empathy to heal the ills that plague us individually and systemically. And if we get our skates on, we can do it in a generation. How? Because when you teach students of any age, you teach their parents and grandparents and cousins and uncles and aunts and spouses and partners and coworkers, and on and on and on. And suddenly, empathy is part of our human conversation and way of life. Empathy is not a luxury. We must do this. It is absolutely necessary for the preservation of our species and our planet. Empathy allows us to stay out of the trap that is fear, so that we can focus our energy on solutions rather than problems. Empathy is what allows us to listen to one another. Empathy stops us from waging war. Empathy stops hate of every kind, and there's nothing more powerful than understanding and being understood. Empathy teaches us that there is no us and them, only us. Empathy allows us to treat all the creatures we encounter with respect and compassion, because when we look into their eyes, we see our own looking back. From empathy, all things are possible. For empathy, you see, allows us to love. And without love, we are nothing. I'm Dr. Margaret Cochran. Until next time, be safe and be well.